My name is James Modley. I am a partner in the Commercial Dispute Resolution team in Higgs LLP. Today's guest and the second person joining us in this series is Simon Hyde, Chief Executive Officer of FAUN Zoeller UK Limited, a leading waste management company which specialises in manufacturing high specification waste collection vehicles, bin lifters and road sweepers. FAUN is part of the Kirkhoff Group, which is a family business with circa 56 production plants worldwide, circa 14,200 staff and sales of over 3.3 billion euros. Simon, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
Simon, so I've just talked a little bit about you as CEO of FAUN, and I know that you wear various hats, which I'm keen to explore with you. But first and foremost, tell us about who you are, so your job role, what you do on a daily basis, and the team that you lead at FAUN.
Okay, morning, James. Yeah, I'm Simon Hyde, the Chief Executive Officer of FAUN Zoeller UK. So I'm a qualified industrial production engineer. Started life out as an apprentice at the age of 18 at a company called Morgan Crucible. So I did about 15 years there. At 24, I was appointed General Manager of an £8 million site. And ever since, I've been running profit centres, for want of a better phrase. And then in, I think, 1996, I went to the States. So I ran a business in the States for Morgan. It was technical ceramics in Pittsburgh. So my son was born out there. Came back just over 2 years later, and then joined Zoeller Waste Systems, as it was then, in June 2000. And ever since, it's just been an interesting ride. Let's say that. They didn't tell me at the interview at Zoeller Waste that it was technically insolvent. So that was a challenge. So we flipped that round. And in 2004-05, we made a strategic alliance with FAUN. And then we formed the legal entity FAUN Zoeller in 2007. And again, it was troubled. It was a difficult market. It wasn't performing well. But the family gave me 5 years to flip it around, and we did. So we're back in profit, and now we're on the transition to growth and expansion, and that's how you see us now. So we're a very rapid gung-ho through the career. In June, I've been here for 25 years. And quite frankly, it's the best company and the best job I've ever had.
That's amazing. And I'm going to ask you a question because you and I have talked about this before, but you told me a story of when you were going to the interview to be CEO of FAUN, that you mapped out how you could turn around this company. Tell me that same story now so everyone can hear what you did, because I find it fascinating, your approach.
But you want about the one where the shareholder and the family told me about to go for it, that story?
Yeah, and how you pieced everything together and how you played it all out before.
Okay, so well, I'll use media-friendly language, of course, but effectively, Johannes Kirchhoff, who was one of the shareholders, the owners, said to me, "Would you present to my father and the brothers your turnaround program?" And I said, "Yeah, no problem. Can you give me the numbers?" And I said, "Yeah, no problem." So off I went to a hotel for the weekend, and I just couldn't get this plan. Bearing in mind, I'd come from a PLC, so everything was short term, 6 months, 6 weeks, something like that. And the depth of the problems at the company were quite big, and I just couldn't literally get it past 5 years in terms of product, inventing new product, new strategy, new service, new people, the whole everything. It was dark. So I sat there and thought, well, okay, well, I've got nothing to lose. I put a 5-page presentation together, and off I flipped from Birmingham Airport to Cologne, met the father, the 3 brothers, and 2 of the fellow directors. And it was quite nerve-wracking because I'd only met this guy a handful of times before, and there he was asking me to turn around this £25 million business that was going to be 30 million. And I thought, okay, here we go. And 3 pages into it, this gentleman of 6'5", big stature, got some presence, slammed his fist on the table and said, "Stop." And I thought, here we go, that's it. Curtains, off I get kicked back to Birmingham Airport. And he said, "Simon, we do it." At which point I said, "Oh, bugger." And that there and then, and the other one I think you want to hear is I was then appointed to the FAUN board, so I tunnelled into this. It was what would appear to be a very James Bond-esque situation where Janos sat at the top of the table, and everyone was presenting their numbers, and I put a 4-page presentation together, and the first page, this is really important, was the preempt. So I wanted to make sure that the room had understood what I'd inherited. Second page was the balance sheet, the profit and loss, which didn't make good reading. So Johannes, in his wisdom, said, right, we have a bio break and we come back and Simon can tell us all about the UK. And Simon is the new CEO of FZ UK, blah, blah, blah. So off we trot, come back, and unbeknown to me, on this screen that is, it's like 10 metres by 20 metres, the whole size of the room, you couldn't make it any bigger, was my profit and loss numbers. And in the bottom right-hand corner was this horrible red. It's huge. And everyone looked at me as if to say, get out of that one, sunshine. So I looked round, looked at the table, looked at the presentation, and Janos said, Simon, talk us through your numbers. And I looked at them again, turned around and said, they're crap, aren't they? And he said, yeah, they are, but you all sort it out. And to my astonishment, I just sat back and thought, wow, this guy is going to trust everything that I've delivered on paper. And from that moment, I lump went in my throat and I said, you know what, I'm not going to let you down. And with absolute tenacity and severity, I just got on the plane and went home and thought, that's it. You know, the biggest motivation could have been the owner of the company. It was a big number. It was a significant number. And he said, right, we trust your plan. We trust you implicitly. You've done it at Zoeller Waste. You've done it at Morgan. Go fill your boots. And it was quite an emotional moment, and one that I will never forget.
And just tell us, Simon, for the benefit of everyone listening and watching, what number you have now got FAUN Zoeller up to.
So we're trading circa just south of $1 million profit on around about 40 to 50 million of sales. And we've got a growth plan to extend that to circa 2 million on 70 to 80 million. So part of what I've done is, once we normalise the business, I said to the family, like, once we get it profitable, we have a boring 5 years. So in other words, it can be sustained. We repair the balance sheet, we get cash back in, and it's boring, so we can prove that it's sustainable. And 3 years into that, I got bored and decided to do other things. And that's when the hydrogen thing came in. So I went to the family in Turin and presented a growth plan, which basically was realistic numbers. They weren't Excel spreadsheet numbers or fictitious thoughtful numbers. They were realistic numbers driven from the bottom to the top. And we're heading towards an 80 to 85 million pound turnover with significant profits on 2 sites.
So significant difference from when you first joined to where we are now and looking forward.
You could say.
We'll come on to some of the bits that you've just said, but over and above being CEO, I know from speaking to you, you wear various hats and are involved in a multitude of different things, all for creating a better future. Do you want to talk to us about some of the things that you do?
Yeah, I think during that period that I've referenced about being a little bit bored, you know, we put the business on track. The operational team was in place, and they were off doing their thing. And I explained to that team, as chief exec, really my role is to rethink the future and what the future looks like. You know, all the pestle kind of stuff we did, but alongside that, I had a bit of a moment where I thought, well, you know what, I'm here because of 2 people who mentored me very early in my life. And no names, no patro, you know who they are. And I sat there, thought, you know what, I'd like to give something back to the younger generation, and that's what I did. So I decided to sit on the Worcestershire Skills Board and help their challenges. I set up the Redditch Business Leaders Group. I did that, and I sat on the local Skills Improvement Board, because a lot of people were making a disconnect between education and young people and employment, and it seemed to be this huge gap. And I said, well, this seems to be fairly easy to resolve. It's not, it's difficult, because there's 2 different mindsets, but I embarked on a journey to say, look, you know, we've got to make sure that we're looking after the young people and creating their futures, at the same time helping businesses who are apparently struggling for skills. And it was a big thing. And obviously I threw myself at that. So we had some fantastic results, particularly with the Reddish business leaders. I think in our first 18 months, we set up it wasn't just a talking shop. We were interacting with schools. And I think in the 1 year we had something like over 1,000 interactions between businesses and schools and colleges in the local area. But I think the one that I'm personally very proud of was that I was asked to set up a mentor scheme in Redditch. And we went through one scheme, again, no names, no pack drill, but it was too bureaucratic, and I felt it wasn't mentee-centric enough. So me and the principal set up one, and there was 3 of us doing it in one school with 3 students. And I'm very, very proud and happy to say now we have a charity called Power Up. It's ILM-based. It's an established charity, and we have over 100 qualified mentors across 27 schools in the county and growing. And it is a proud moment because, you know, I benefited from it, and I think it's important. And what's really surprised me is the amount of people that want to help us help that younger generation, particularly after the COVID and all that stuff. It's all doom and gloom. It's not. It's making them breathe. It's making them realise that there is a future out there, and actually igniting the employees to help them on the way as well. So, yeah, we've been doing a lot on that scene, but it's generally younger generation focused.
I can tell how passionate you are from previous conversations and this one about helping people find their way to maximise their potential and giving people the tools to make sure they're as good as they can and want to be. And I think businesses as a whole, yours, ours, whoever, most of the clients that I work for are people empowered, and they want to provide a better future, not only for their businesses, but for the economy in the respective local regions. So I think what you are doing, working with those schools and the young people to bring them up and arm them with everything they need, deserves some serious credit. So you should be very, very proud of that, and I know that you are. So quickly, I've touched on it. Tell us, what does FAUN do?
Well, as my father calls them, dust carts. But I think they've been modernised. Yeah, we supply refuse collection vehicles and mechanical road sweepers to, at the end, local authorities. So we go through basic local authorities or the private waste sector. So that's what we do. That's the ecotech business within the Kershaw family. It's environmental assets, vehicles to help municipals clean the streets, empty bins. It's not a difficult product, but it's one that has to be fulfilled. Every local authority has a statutory right to pick up Mrs. Smith's bin, and we sit in that market. There are some challenges, I'm sure, but yeah, that's fundamentally what we do. And we sell the product to local authorities, and of course we provide the service and after-sales support for when it breaks down or gets damaged.
But you're pioneers in a certain technology, aren't you, that you touched upon at the very, very start of this conversation, and that's hydrogen. So just explain to the listeners, what is that, and why are you pioneers in hydrogen and refuse trucks?
Okay, that's a long answer, I think. I think during that boredom period, as an engineer, I was very fascinated by the decarbonisation programme. And obviously during COVID, I was a climate change sceptic. I thought it was a technology for technology's sake. But during my walks, during the leafy Worcestershire, you lived in the country, you could tell the difference, and it just hit me. And the group had been on the decarbonising trial since 2009, and sitting on the main board, I was involved in that. So we had a diesel-electric hybrid. And in 2018, Johannes and the team decided to go into hydrogen fuel cell technology, and that was launched in Munich in 2018. And of course, that was a great interest to me personally, and also I thought it was a great opportunity for the company. We did some research. We were not tempted to bring the product too early into the UK because we're an unforgiving bunch. If we bring technology and it's wrong, it's persecuted, it never lives again. So we took 3-4 years really learning hard about it, really doing some research and preparing our team, our skills, and all that ready for when we bought the first truck over. And I was very proud to announce in 2020 we put our first hydrogen fuel cell truck into St Helens, and it was seamless. It was only one truck. They wanted more, but we said no. We'll put it in. We'll make it work, and we were all over it. We invested so much time and energy and resource to it. It's been a great success, and it has not missed a beat since. It's outperforming the diesel, and I'm so proud of our achievements. And also, we've recently set up a training academy with South City College, Birmingham. So they invested in a hydrogen fuel cell chassis, and it's the only academy and college in the UK that actually, whilst does the battery, electric and hydrogen fuel cell curriculum, has product that the students can work on. And that's well documented down the social media and what we've done. So it's not going away. It's a challenge because of the funding, which is why we bought the hire company. But it's something that the company, it is part of our growth plan, and I see it's a really important part of decarbonising fleets for local authorities. These things do 3 miles a gallon, and if you go into the inner city and you can see the pollution that these things give, young people, all of us breathing in that kind of those fumes, it's not good. And it's part of our, we want to make sure that we are definitely contributing towards that net zero campaign, which we are.
And again, that in itself is really impressive, because to say that the only college in the UK is in Birmingham, of which you and I are very, very close to geographically, it is something really to be proud of, and thinking everyone that can go through that programme can then disseminate across the UK, across the world, and share that knowledge that they learn whilst pushing for a cleaner future, which is what everyone, quite rightly nowadays, is after. So for you and your company to be at the forefront of that, you're very humble in the way that you say things and the way that you talk about the business. Again, I think that's absolutely brilliant. So you also said a really, really interesting comment earlier about your role as a CEO. And you alluded to the fact that you are an enabler for helping other people within the business to move it forwards whilst you steer the ship. So just tell us, what is your normal day? What does it look like from the time that you get in the office to the time that you leave to go home? Talk to us about what do you do on a normal day?
There is no normal day, James. I wish there was. I pray for those days. I think if there was any focus, I mean, the first thing I do is put my briefcase down before I even turn my computer on and go and talk to people in the company. And I've done that since my early days in Morgan. I think leadership has to be, it's only my opinion, but it certainly has to be people centric. We can't do any of the stuff that I've articulated to you this morning without the people. And I know a lot of companies say it, but I can't help thinking sometimes it's a PowerPoint or it's a mission statement. But I really do believe that 90% of my days is centered around not tasks, but talking to people, listening to them, engaging with them, empowering them, letting them breathe. Johannes gave me that permission to go and fill my boots, as he said, many, many years ago. And I learned that. And from my two mentors, allowing people to breathe. Everyone is good at something. And it's the job of leaders to try and find out what that is. They don't always forthcome and tell you. You have to prize it out of them. But I think that's probably my main daily focus is I go around and listen to people, not necessarily work either, whether the dog's sick or the kids are ill or they won a race at school, or it doesn't matter. We can't dehumanize leadership. We can't dehumanize and just focuses and processes and procedures. I think it's all about the people and allowing them to breathe and excel and find their own way. So there is no normal day, James, but I think if it was an answer I'd give it would be definitely people-centric, yeah.
I love that answer for so many reasons, and you've touched upon some really, really important points that I do want to come on to and speak to you about, because, again, from speaking to you off camera, I know that your views on leadership are really, really powerful, and I want to get other people listening to what you say, because I think there's some really pearls of wisdom in there. But again, if I'm putting my hat on as a partner in Higgs law firm, some of the things that you've just said, we've got natural synergies with that. So we are very, very and proud to be people centric, whether that's our people internally or that's people externally, like yourself, Simon, that we work with and build a relationship. And I'm a firm believer you are only as good as the people you put around you. You cannot know everything. You cannot cover all bases. It's that trust and empowering someone else next to you to get you where you would like to be, and everyone going on that same journey. And look, yeah, we'll come on to that, but I'm excited about talking to you about that in a minute. But you've been talking about success and how you turned around a company that was in some difficulty to the really, really successful company it is now. So if I were to say to you, what are your 3 non-negotiables for success? And then how is success measured? What would you say?
Oh, I've pondered on this, and it's a phrase that was handed to me when I was in my days at Morgan, and at 22 I thought, what a stupid thing, but on reflection I've used it ever since. And it's stay focused, work hard, and be patient. And I think it's something that embraces a lot of things behind that. Staying focused is, if you've got a plan, whatever it is, whether it's to turn around a business or build a factory, it doesn't matter. You have to make sure that plan is correct. You know, I do get frustrated that companies that re-strategize, they're on their second strategy. But to me, unless things externally are dramatically changed, it means the first strategy wasn't well thought out. So we here, for example, we sat down and really decided, dug really, really deep. What is our strategy? And that's a big piece of work. What is your plan? Work hard. You know, everything you do has to be completely aligned to that. Every element, whether it be resource, people, manpower, investment, whatever it is, you really have to be tenacious in making sure that nothing can detract you. You have to be laser focused on that plan. So that's the definition of work hard. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to wake up at 7 o'clock and work till 7. I actually don't agree with that, because you need your mind to be free of other things as well.
Yeah.
The difficulty is the be patient thing, because I'm blessed, I'm cursed with an impatient nature. So I often get, that's Rich coming from you. But I think we have to be patient in the sense that if you're talking about people changing and people doing things, we have to give them time. And I think the one thing I learned from the family is that, you know, they gave me 5 years. Yes, of course, I delivered. But they gave me that luxury of that patience, and this is probably where it is a difficult concept, because certainly for a lot of companies who have hungry stakeholders and shareholders, the patience thing is sometimes a challenge. But I, in an attempt to answer your question, I think those 3 words encompass a lot for me. And even Johannes Kirchhoff himself at a Christmas dinner referenced it, that it's a good plan to engage. Make sure your plan and strategy is absolutely crystal clear and right. And that can take time. And the team and you are tenacious and making it happen, and be relentless on it. You know, what have we got to do to hit this plan? Not, obstacles are put there to be broken down in my brain. Let's stop as a human beings, we do end up putting problems in front of solutions. And I get frustrated by that. And I think that work hard piece is key. As I said, the challenge is the patient thing, but that we could discuss that all day, James, on that one.
No, I was sat here thinking, be patient, and I'm glad that you said you're not the most patient person, because neither am I. I think, and we've been through it. So as a business, we've set a plan. We have worked hard to use your term, laser focus on what we want and how we are going to get there with the people that we have, and all pull in the same direction. And I think sometimes that's a challenge as well, everyone pulling in the same direction. And there may be people along the way that maybe not necessarily do not agree, may not pursue what your objectives are. And I think it's natural that, and life has taught us that some of those people may fall away, and equally, that's okay. But the be patient bit, everyone wants success and everyone wants success immediately. And I think that is a really, really useful lesson. Trust in your plan, trust in your people. And if you are patient, it will, fingers crossed, hopefully come off. So thank you for sharing that. Underneath all of that, you've got the non-negotiables. So where were they driven from? You alluded to the fact you learnt them at Morgan, but where were those non-negotiables instilled in you?
Where or when?
Both.
I think early on Morgan, when I was an apprentice, I found it quite an intimidating environment because there was a lot of PhDs, very clever people, and you know I was an engineering apprentice, and I was submerged into that. So it's an observation, not a criticism of the organisation. But I guess I felt in my inner self I had to prove it to other people and myself that I was worthy of being on the same field as them. And that's probably born out of maybe that fear of not going to university through the academia.
Yeah.
And I think that's wrong. I think everyone, whether they choose to go to academia or not, we're all good at something. Let's just go and find out what that is. And I think I probably learned how it made me feel. Probably was a better way of saying, well, do you know what? I don't want to make that feeling when I'm talking to people. That everyone is equal. Just because they choose to do A, B, C for a living doesn't make them any better. So I think humility and empathy, and again, honest and openness very much has served me very well. Yeah, there's a danger. You're always going to get someone who tries to lift your leg and take a rise. That's life. Yeah, that's a life lesson and a work lesson. But I think the non-negotiables, I would say, any advice I'd say to a young leader is don't forget your people. It's not negotiable to understand how your people are, the good days, the bad days, because at the end of the day, I know it sounds cheesy, but they will make you a success. They will make you a company success. And at the same time, if they feel rewarded and valued, you know, where's this word of value gone anymore? We just go straight to finance, which is fine. But what about the value of humans and the social kind of currency that holds? I think that's very strong. I think it's more powerful. So I think a non-negotiable would be the people centricity.
Yeah,
without question. But you know, football, cricket, all the games I've played off you know, out of work, and the social interaction, everything. It's all about people.
I agree. And you've just quite rightly said, the world would be a boring place if we were all the same. So we've got people that excel at some areas and people will excel in other areas. And I think the job as a leader is to see on that chessboard who is good at what and how you can put them all together so the sum of all parts are better than one. So, and once you put them all together, you've got a really, really powerful team behind you driving that plan, going back to what your three non-negotiables were, driving everything forwards. And value, I completely agree with that. Automatically, everyone always jumps to, well, what's the financial metric? Sometimes value can't be measured in financial metrics. Sometimes value can't be measured at all. It's the things that you don't see. It's the culture underneath it. It's, are those people doing the things that they should be doing when other people aren't watching? And it's the trust piece, isn't it? But getting all of those together is difficult.
And I think I often say to people, if there's two things you can do in an hour, the task or go and talk to the person. What do we do as humans? We do the task because it's obvious that the output. Well, actually, if we focus on the person, leave the task. If you focus more on the person, funny enough, the tasks get less. But as humans, we go straight to the task, and I try to change that, and that's what when I say to my team, you know, the task is that's where you think in your head because I've done that spreadsheet or I've done that quote. That's the best deliverable of the day. But if you've got 10 million quotes and you talk to the person about helping you with the quotes, 10 million goes down to 5 million.
Yeah.
You know, we overestimate the task and underestimate the person.
Yeah. Yeah. And I suppose coming in off the back of everything that we're discussing, and this is a really open question, what's the most valuable lesson that you have learned in business?
Oh, making mistakes. Without question.
In what way? Expand on that. In what way? Mistakes.
It's a huge response. When you make mistakes, my view is right. What would I have done different? What data did I have in my brain that I made the wrong decision? And it's very cheesy, I know, but you got to learn from them. You know, when we were riding a bike, you know, it's cringy to watch your kids fall off your bike and hurt themselves, but hopefully they're learning what they've got wrong.
Yeah.
I think without question, I mean, I remember Johannes and I interviewing the CFO. Well, he was a management accountant at the time. He's now CFO, Richard. And he asked me and Johannes a question: Why have you now pulled out? I notice on your company that you've come out of contracts. Blah blah blah. Why that? Both Johannes said straight away, we made a mistake. We realised we made a mistake. We got it wrong. Richard's how he interpreted that. He said he came out of that meeting afterwards. He told me. He said it was the most refreshing thing to hear the owner and the chief exec admit in an interview that they got something wrong, but this is what we were going to do.
Yeah.
And I took a plus out of that. I mean, that event took place nearly 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, any advice, try to make the same mistake twice. That's a different conclusion, for sure. But I think, you know, it does sound cheesy, but definitely without question, if you make mistakes and you really do learn from them, it's good currency to have.
It absolutely is. And I think there's a taboo around mistakes, as though mistakes should never potentially be talked about in some certain situations, or that mistakes can't be positive. But we're all human. So whether it's in a professional or personal capacity, I'll be the first to say I have made mistakes. But if I wouldn't have made those mistakes, I wouldn't know what I do now. And am I a better person for it? I would like to think so. Would there be a different scenario, as you have just said, if I made the same mistakes twice? Definitely, because that means that I haven't learned from what went wrong in the first place, or I haven't understood what the issue was. And I think if you continue to make the same mistakes, that is a different conversation, as you quite rightly say.
Yeah. And I think as a leader, we have to create the environment where people are brave to make those mistakes, but we equip them with enough knowledge and information and support. If they make the same mistake twice, then that's a different discussion for sure, as you said. But yeah.
I will never be critical, and I'd like to think I never have been, of someone within the firm or the team coming to say, I've made a mistake. Because we need that transparency, that openness, where everyone can feel comfortable in saying, I've made a mistake, this is what it is, but this is the solution I've got for it. But that is just perfectly normal in my view.
I agree.
I'm glad you agree.
You told me to.
I didn't. No. Okay. So, running FAUN, being a CEO, being a leader to the team, what's the secret sauce that you've got that makes it all work? Share with us. What is the secret?
Oh, secret sauce. Well, the result is a positive working environment. I think, you know, what we've just referenced now, James, about the freedom to, you know, our board meetings are colourful. Let's put it that way. But once the door's shut, we can go and have a glass of wine or a beer, and there's no comeback for people's opinions. Yeah, they're entitled to opinion. But I also think in the latter part of my tenure, I've used the phrase, in order of importance, it's data, opinion, and prejudices. Thanks for your opinion, but let's have a look at the data. And the data is very much what are the facts before we, and again, getting back to the strategic thinking, let's have a look at the facts before we dive into opinions. And I think what's the source I think creating the environment as a leader that people can have a say, they can have a voice, they can have an opinion, they're allowed to articulate it. Yes, there are some powerful personalities in the boardroom, for sure. But what we do is to try to equate the voice and the noise so everyone feels that they can make a contribution and allow those people in the room that have got the appropriate skill for the others to shut up and listen to this person. And I think it's almost like in my position as a referee, you know, not much is said, but you're just coordinating and making sure that these things are teased out when we're faced with a problem or when we're faced with an opportunity. And again, I can't help thinking every answer I'm coming to is coming down to that people thing again, because that's the gearbox. Those are the people that make this engine run, not me. It's there's a lot of energy in the room, there's a lot of skill in the room, and it's making sure that that's blended and matched, and it's not in isolation. That it's definitely. I hate this because a lot of people call it team spirit and team work. You know, James, you've been in football teams and cricket teams. You know, the people who play on the side, that they're not really interested in the team, really, the welfare of the team. So I think that's something that we do really focus on. We do look after each other, and if mistakes are made, we end up supporting each other as well. You know, if Bobby's messed up, okay, well, how can we do to make that? Can we? We don't just point fingers at Bobby. It's right. How can we help? How can we get back on track? I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. And I'm just sat here thinking, you're right. So the strong undercurrent in everything that we're talking about comes back to people. And to make people perform to their absolute optimum requires a good culture, but it requires a good leader to empower those people. And again, you touched upon it earlier, that there have been certain individuals in your life professionally that have helped you become the person who you are today. So in your mind, pulling all of that together, what makes a great leader?
Oh, James, you didn't tell me this one was coming. Having a clear focus and vision, I think, is the human brain needs to understand why. My dad used to really pee me off because he'd ask me to do something, and then being an inquisitive 5-year-old said why, and his answer was Z, or because I said. And I remember sitting there as a 5-year-old thinking, I want to know why. So when we do things like here, when we do a change program, or we do create a new initiative, I think it's really important that people understand why. Why do we do these things? There's a reason. And if it's because Simon says, that's no answer. But if it's underpinned by we want to grow the business and all that data, so you can really answer the reasons why, people are more likely to buy into that because they can see everything you do or say in the next 5 years aligns to that answer. And if it's positive, of course it will be, that we want to grow the business, we want to invest in people, these are the reasons why we're doing it, people are more likely to buy into that. And of course, the other thread to that answer is bringing them along, this people thing again, is really, really key. They feel that what they do, they feel valued, they feel they're contributing. You know, I'm no different to anyone else. You know, when I sat down and Yana said to me, fill your boots, I felt I was valued. I felt he made me feel important. And I was made to feel that I was contributing. So we're no different. So I think having a clear vision as to what your plan is and what you're doing, but why, is really, 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 really important. It's definitely served me well. Yeah. And again, bringing those people along the way is important, and working with them to say, look, you can contribute. And as you've quite rightly said, yes, there are casualties. And also, this is important as well, that other people who are willing to go with you need to understand that those people who don't want to go with you and are in conflict get dealt with. You know, Brian Clough, what a man. How the devil can he get a mediocre player ended up playing for England? Yeah. Wow. So I think my view on leadership is, many books have been written, but I think they can be overcomplicated. I think we're human beings and we need to be dealt with accordingly. I've said many times, but I think having that clear vision and explaining it and why is really key. And that's what I've done along the way.
Born, are leaders born or self-taught?
Oh, I was hating this question. I think a bit of both. Certainly, I've always been quite gregarious as a person. I've enjoyed people interaction. Even when I was at school, when I was at college, James, you know me, I like a good laugh.
Yeah.
I think I've got a good sense of humour. I like the social side of life, let's put it that way. So I think the interaction with people is quite important, and that has been. So the born piece that's the kind of character I am. Are they created? Certainly, without question. When I reference going with Morgan and they invested in me, all that money on management training programs, I was like a sponge. I thought, I'm in this room for a reason. I'm going to learn from these people. I think learning from other people, learning from your experiences. So I think it's a combination of both, and I hope that's not a cop-out answer. I don't believe it's a binary answer. Just don't believe it. I've certainly prospered from the investment of the management training that Morgan gave me, and making sure that you are engaged with other people who I look up to, people like Johannes Kirchhoff and his brothers. I look up to them and I learn from them. And I think it's having that ability to be able to, okay, that's a good point. I learn from that. Having that open mind. So I think a hybrid.
I love it. No, I completely agree. For what it matters, I completely agree. And along your journey, you will have people that you have looked up to. You will have people that you may not necessarily have believed was the right style, and a mixture of both. So, who has inspired you, or what has inspired you along the way to get you to where you are now?
I think I didn't at the time, was the mentor when I was 11. Without question, Tony, when I was 20 to 25, big impact. And then actually, I think Johannes Kirchhoff himself probably has given me that on a bigger platform. We're talking about a man who runs a 3.3 billion turnover business that has political persuasions and communications and relationships. And to sit next to him at this dinner and listen to him in a board meeting, I look up to the guy. So I think those are three. And of course, you've got your external ones. People like, I referenced Brian Clough, a guy, Alex Ferguson, Mandela. These people that have had massive impact on a greater scale than FAUN Zoeller. It's all part of those things. That there was a scene in the film with Mandela where everyone was expecting him to say something and he did the opposite. And I just sat and thought, wow, how powerful is that? It's no wonder that this man can bring people along with him, because the reason he was doing it, why, he just got them on board, and his humility and his manner at which he spoke to people. So it's not one person, James, but certainly closer to where I live are those people I've referenced.
And I'm going to bring you back to two, and I'm going to bring you back to two on purpose, and you've named some stellar names there. The 11-year-old Simon Hyde with a mentor. Who and why?
What was his name?
Why was he an inspiration to you, or she? But why were they an inspiration to you?
Well, this is the thing. I didn't know it was at the time, because I can't swear, but I was a little toe rag between the age of 5 and 11. I really was. I was the most disruptive thing and this is what I say to a lot of the kids when I'm mentoring them. I anything that was naughty, I did it. I could really just rattle them off. It was awful. I even now, to say to my mother and father at the age of 92 and 91, I'm really sorry. I created a lot of grief. Effectively, I mean, a child psychiatrist or that, it was right messy. I was bored. I was disruptive in class, but this teacher gave me attention, and he took my grades, the most important year of my life. At 11, I was going down to the high school. So those days you were streamed, non-German speaking and German. We had phrases for that, but you can't use them these days. But it didn't look good because it was D, D, E, 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 everything. It was just mucking around was A+. Being a fool and a clown was A star star. Geography, science and maths was poor. In 12 months, he took every grade by RE to an A and a B. And it's because, I think now, it's because he gave me some attention. He made me realise that actually someone was giving me some attention. And if I'd focused my energies on this, I could prosper. And that's what he did. And I'm very grateful that when I set this charity up, the mentor scheme, I invited that mentor in to this. He sat in this very seat, and I thanked him. And I said to him, if it wasn't for you, I would not be sat in this chief executive officer's chair.
Yeah.
And he said that's the best thing anyone's ever said to him as a teacher. And I meant it. I absolutely meant it.
What a lovely story, though. And what a lovely, from where you were 11 years ago to where you are now, to look back and think that was a tangible difference. That was almost like a turning point, in all seriousness, in the fork in the road where you could have potentially gone. Yeah. And do you think that was down to him giving you the confidence and you having the self-belief that actually it's been spotted, this person is investing time in me, he's trying to help me, I can do what I think others can expect of me?
Without question, James, you've nailed that. That's exactly the time that someone has invested in me and had belief. That phrase that you've just said was absolutely spot on. He took the time and invested time. Yeah, he could have gone to the pub. He could have gone out after school or did whatever. He chose to sit with me and invest that time and made me feel I was worth and belief. And I think, I was an 11-year-old child, but that concept can be deployed at any age.
Absolutely.
The output is the same. Wow. And this is where I came back to, we all as leaders focus on the task. The tasks get done. But who's to say this person here doesn't have that same attention that you've just referenced? And what you've said, by the way, is spot on. That's word perfect. It's exactly what he did. It's exactly what he did. Wow, I'm now worth something. And this is what we try to say, both in the leadership world I live in, but also in the mentoring with kids, because there's going to be another Simon who sits there twiddling his thumb, creating. So I've seen so many people get in trouble at school and never had one detention.
Yeah. So that was 11-year-old Simon, and the second one is more close to my heart for obvious reasons. So you've referenced someone called Tony. You can come on and tell the story, but Tony was my uncle who has passed, but I didn't get to meet you until, in fact, it was the day of Tony's funeral, and then thereafter. So it's great for me to listen to people like you that saw Tony in the work environment and helping others. So tell us and tell me, how did Tony help you?
You know what the phrase is? Absolute brutal honesty. Because at 17 and 18, when I kind of joined the company, I traversed from a naughty 11-year-old to a cocky 16-year-old. Cocksure, I got a job. I was doing this. I was on the way. I've been on a course, and I remember going to Italy and getting a significant order. And it was a significant order, and it was not expected. So you can imagine when I got on the plane, unbeknown to me, the rep in Italy was pretty miffed because of my cocky behaviour. And I landed, proud as punch, going to announce to the whole management team at Morgan that I'd won this big order in Italy. And then Tony collared me and said, what are you doing Friday afternoon? So I'm going to go home. I've got some raking to do. He said, oh, why don't you stop over? We're going to have some lunch. And we went into the canteen at Morgan, and Judy went to his office. And what I now call it, the mirror meeting. People often say to me, what is that? I said, this big man, in a whole way, he was a big lad.
He was.
But he was big. He was a big in heart and a big in culture and big in soul. Picked up this mirror and he said, there you go, that's what you are. And I won't bore you or the audience with what he did, but he tore me a strip. He made me feel that big. And I went home that weekend and I can't remember returfing my lawn. I just cannot. And I took a decision. I had a choice to make that weekend. Was Tony telling me because he wanted to help me and he wanted to impart all the wisdom that he had and all the experience he had to help me? Or was he just being jealous because I was the one that got the order? That was a decision I had to make that weekend. Fortunately for me, and the way he was, I went, you know what? The bugger's trying to help me. And I went back on the Monday morning, shook his hand and said, all right, come on. And he built me up and he built me up and he put me in the right direction. He was, I can't thank him enough. And again, I wouldn't be here if it weren't for Tony, without question. And he was brutal honesty. And he's done it to others since. What a great man. And I learned a lot from him. And the two words, honest and open, always come to mind. But he dealt with it in a way that was to help, not to squander, not to put me down. It was actually to make me realise that's what you are. You've got some choices to make, Simon. I'll help you make them. I'll help you with them. And he did. And he made me a better individual and a better person and a better leader. And I always, well, I dedicated the mentor scheme to Tony in one edition of the Stop Press. And that's the importance of what he did.
He did. Very proud to call him my uncle. So hearing that story is quite emotional, but equally very, very, very proud. No, it is. It is. And we've all sat here and we've all listened to how you lead, how you've transformed a company and how you've been successful as you have been. So a question for you, because everyone looking in always thinks, well, you're Simon Hyde, you're CEO of FAUN, you've got everything absolutely sealed up and nailed. Do you ever suffer from imposter syndrome?
Yeah, I have done. Yeah, for sure. I think it's not a bad thing because being a sportsman, if you're at the crease with the bat and you think, I'm going to make a few runs here, that complacency can get you in a lot of trouble, and you can make the wrong decisions. And I think being alert and being aware of what you don't know or what you need to know for your self-improvement is key. And keep your feet on the ground. That's the one thing Tony said to me, wherever you go, keep your feet on your ground. And that's really big advice. Any leader, I would say to you now, remember where you've come from and keep your feet on your ground. Because that's the most important, because other people will see you grow. They'll also be monitoring how you've changed. Is it a positive change or is it a negative change? I remember being asked by a group of potential leaders, you said when you were early on in your career, you used to walk round and talk to people on the shop floor. I said, yes. Do you still do that now? Yes, I said. And then the same person said, and do you talk to them differently now that you're a CEO? And I laughed and I said, why would I?
Yep.
Why would I? Because I'm Simon the person as well as Simon the chief exec. So I think of the imposter syndrome, I mean, when I first joined Zoeller Waste Systems, I was driving a Vauxhall Belmont at Morgan, and I got into this job and they gave me a brand new ADA4, brand new, and I thought, flipping it, I hadn't got an order. And I thought, I don't belong in this brand new car. It's a German A4, Audi A4 estate, brand new, spanking it was. It's like, wow, yeah, of course. And when I was appointed MD, wow, But it focuses your mind on making sure you make the right decision. So it's not a bad thing. And yes, I have suffered it. And no doubt, if I put in the next part of my life, will I feel it again? Perhaps. But I'm more equipped to be able to deal with it that way now.
Yeah. Yeah. Equally, I'm not afraid to say I have and do suffer with imposter syndrome. I think everyone looks in and thinks because you've worked your way up and you are now what people class as at the top of being a CEO, that you know all the answers, and that's just never the case. No one knows all of the answers. And
it's a lonely place, I can tell you.
Absolutely. So you made me feel better. I'm conscious of time, so I'm going to just ask or just discuss with you just a couple more points, which I'd love to get your view on. And I think I know the answer to this, but what's your greatest achievement in your role over the last 25 years of your career? What would you class as your greatest achievement and why?
Have I just got one?
Only one. Only one.
Okay. I think the magnitude of the turnaround.
Yep.
It was a big number we were losing, and it was a big change. It was a colossal change, and one that would a lot of people thought. I remember one person come up to me and say, "Flipping hell, that's a big ask." I'd love to meet that bloke now.
Because you did it, and you exceeded it.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think it was the magnitude of the problem, and you know, with the fact that we flipped it round, and it wasn't just. It was the whole company. It wasn't just sales or service or finance or engineering. It was the whole company.
Yeah.
So I think if I had to choose one, that's probably one of my proudest moments at work. Yeah.
It's a pretty good answer. Pretty good answer to say the least. And look, I have the privilege of working with you and FAUN, and I'm grateful for that. But just for those listening, and for me as well, what do you look for from external advisors?
Oh, that's an easy answer. I think that honest and openness. We had a conversation before Christmas about, you know, what something you had to do. You picked up the phone and you had a very honest discussion with us. And I think the value that me and the team put on you and your team is very high. And that's not just for your media. It's not for this podcast.
That's good to know. Thank you.
No. I mean it. I think I can, on behalf of the whole senior team here, speak very highly of how you deal with. Let's face it, legal issues they're a pain anyway. Some positive, whether they're positive or negative, and you know some of the strains and stresses that we've had. You and your company and your officers within it have been a great help, and I think it's bound to that relationship that's there.
Yeah.
There's no awkward discussions that we have. It's pretty honest, both ways.
Yeah.
And I think you know, we now see your team as an extension to this business, and it's one of the first things I did with the insurance company many years ago, when I said, look, why is our insurance premium so big? And they came in and said, if you do this, that and the other, then you can get your premium down. Great, brilliant. You're the specialist, tell us what we do. And we did it. And I always remember that, because a very good positive relationship was forged from that. And that's how I see the relationship with you and your team. It's very much about that open dialogue. Not just with me either.
Yeah.
It's with all the other members within the team. And you know, I can, without question, say that's definitely the answer.
Oh, that's really
strong
kind.
Relationship.
No, that's really kind. And look, we've always said it's got to work for both of us, and that those honest and transparent conversations, they're healthy. They may be difficult at times, but we're all trying to do the best for our respective companies, and it's that people. We come back to that people point again. Right, quick fire questions, and these are my favourites. So, quick fire questions. Are you performance, so KPI, or people driven?
People.
What is it that sets your company apart from competitors?
Relationships.
Listen to your head or heart?
Oh, heart.
Micromanage or trust your people?
Trust your people.
Any regrets?
No, just learning experiences.
And last one, and I'm looking forward to this. I've got a magic wand and I wave it around and I get you to go back to your 21-year-old self. If you were to be in front of your 21-year-old self, what is the key bit of advice and why?
Slow down and listen.
Love it. Simon, it's been a pleasure. I could continue talking to you for another hour. I would love to. We've covered off some really, really powerful points, and I know the people listening and watching will really enjoy listening to this, and hopefully they can take away pieces that will help them in their life, both professionally and personally, but more importantly, see what a great company and what a great person you are. So from me, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
That's very kind. Thank you, James. And up the villa.